Karington here from Open Heart Games. We are live doing our Game Master Ask Me Anything here on Twitch. Couple of exciting announcements. The first, of course, is that we have, if you look right below me, we have exceeded our goal of raising $1,000 for Extra Life, benefiting Karington Children's. I have been informed by our Extra Life liaison that we are actually the second highest donor for our children's hospital, Karington Children's, and my goal is to be number one. So we are actually going to be doing another charity marathon, which is going to be November 6th, Saturday, November 6th. We're going to be doing Against the Giants. We did the first third of Against the Giants. We're going to be fighting Frost Giants this time in a very cool thing. So very excited for that. That'll be November 6th, Saturday, from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will also, another upcoming event, we have tonight at 8 o'clock. If you are looking for a campaign, we have our Descent into Avernus that has 2 spots we're looking to fill. If you're interested, please feel free to reach out to me at Karington@openheartgames.com. Finally, we have One Shot Wednesdays starting September 29th, and that is going to be at 7 o'clock. It is a Wednesday. We're going to be doing Candlekeep Mysteries from this book right here. Here we go. Boom. Candlekeep Mysteries. We're going to be doing The Joy of Extra-Dimensional Spaces, which is the first thing from here. I'm really excited about this. I think it's really cool. It's a great way for you to get your feet wet in Dungeons & Dragons. If you don't have the time to commit to a full campaign like we have for the rest of ours for Descent into Avernus, and also for Descent into Avernus, and also for Rime of the Frost Maiden, this is a great way to just jump in and jump out. And we'll be doing all of them concurrently, so it could be a campaign if you wanted to sit in for all of those. So looking for players for those. Sign-ups are available, as you see in our chat. So now that I've gotten all of those things out of the way, hit me with any questions that you have. I'll be fielding any questions in chat. Anything about role-playing, running games online, Dungeons & Dragons, being a player, so on and so forth. Any questions that you have, I'm happy to answer. Or I can just talk about my own stuff. Which, more than happy to do that while people are kind of thinking about the questions. I know we just kind of started 5 minutes ago and obviously had those fun technical issues. But anyways, so I just watched last night with my wife Pan's Labyrinth for the first time. I had not seen it before. And it got me thinking about the other world. Like, when we are, as game masters, whether it be Dungeons & Dragons or Call of Cthulhu or even Star Wars, talking about this idea of the other world as we explore as game masters and as storytellers. We have these fantastic locations that are so beyond what we have on Earth, or maybe it's similar to what we have on Earth. And how we can make those special locations feel even more like fantastical. And the way that we can do that is with descriptions, is one of the ways. So make sure that we try to describe what makes the world feel different, whether it be, and use all 5 of our senses when doing so. Does it smell like sulfur? For example, one of my groups is in Avernus, which is one of the layers of hell. And that has a very different feel than, say, the Feywild would. The Feywild obviously would feel very, I imagine it being much more like a jungle, much more humid. Lots more life, whereas Avernus is kind of this lifeless husk, this shell that's just this war-torn kind of badlands kind of thing. So the smells, the sights, and things are going to be like that. The heat, the humidity, the feel. Is it going to feel like Avernus is going to feel oppressive, as everything around you is just kind of compounding and pressing in on you. So that is one of the things. Involve, as I mentioned, all 5 senses. What does it feel like? Is the ground, coarse? Is it, is the fauna? If they interact with the fauna, what does it feel like? Does it have the, the cool, I don't know what they're called, the cool like leaves that when you touch them they kind of roll back up. Those kind of things can add a lot of depth to the world, and as they interact with the world around them in the other world. I also, flora and fauna, exciting flora, as I mentioned, with the with those kinds of plants, but also exotic animals. In Dungeons and Dragons, there are like owl bears and things like that, but there's also like all kinds of, you could have all kinds of different like fused things or alien things on different worlds that you could explore. And don't forget to I look to like fantasy art. I actually use Pinterest to look and to get inspiration for different like views that I've seen. Like those are really good locations to kind of go online and look up different like ideas to get for that. So like one of the things I really liked was I really like there's a couple of pieces of art where like there are these giant swords kind of sticking out of a mountain, and like how did those come to be? Like those are really cool ideas to be able to put in there. So don't forget also to touch on the familiar. Like how can you take familiar elements that we have on Earth and kind of like blow them up, make them bigger, or change them slightly so that they can be different. Like I loved in Pan's Labyrinth, when we're looking at the at the other world, there's all the elaborate stonework, and these cool cut patterns and whatnot. Like that was very cool, and also the character designs in the form of the fawn, and then also I don't remember the name of the scary monster other than he's a scary monster with the hand eyes. But any questions at all, like feel free, please drop them in chat. I would love to hear any of your questions that you have about anything at all. It isn't Ask Me Anything. Even something like how's my cat doing? Would any questions at all? So as I mentioned a minute ago, like being able to kind of touch on the familiar, but also change it. So for example, like maybe there's like in the Underdark in Dungeons and Dragons, there are these enormous mushrooms that are used in place of trees. That are enormous, gigantic, and also they also eat these giant mushrooms as well. Some of them are used more like wood, and some of them are used for various things. So that is a stark difference. And Dungeons and Dragons, not only like role playing is in and of itself another world. We are we are exploring those kinds of things. Looks like we have a question. The question is: you run a lot of D&D, and I know you love Star Wars, and have run Call of Cthulhu too. What RPGs, if any, have you had a chance to run? That you'd like to? This is a great question. Thank you so much, Trevlix. I have been looking at running Blades in the Dark because I really think that is a really cool system. I also have run a little bit of, but would love to run more of Numenera. I think Numenera is a really cool RPG that focuses. There are three pillars of role-playing games, and those are combat, exploration, and role-playing, or some people call it like social encounters, or puzzle solving. So I would really like to see, or I'd really like to run Numenera because I think that the game system is very, very cool. And also, like I said, Blades in the Dark looks really, really neat too. From what I understand, and again, I've not had a chance to look into it a lot, but there's like a mechanic in there where you can like, hey, I'm going to do a thing, and the game master says, did you bring your sack of rope? And you're like, yeah. If you remember, I met a fence, and you kind of do the like the Marvel thing where you have like the da-da-da-da-da, and then you go back and you act out that scene where you got that piece of equipment, or not. And maybe it went well, and maybe it didn't go well. Maybe you got a piece of faulty equipment, and so on and so forth. So you can kind of do a lot of like flashbacks. And again, that's what I've heard about it. I've not had a chance to look into it. There may be some differences there. Another one that I really am looking forward to is the Power by the Apocalypse system, Avatar, the role-playing game. I'm a huge Avatar, Last Airbender, and Legend of Korra fan. And so when that came out, which I wrote a blog about on our blog, I talked about how that is actually the most successful role-playing product in history. I'm very much looking forward to that. I kickstarted that as high as I could because I think that game is going to be very, very good. From the little I saw on it and just the research and the passion that went into that by Magpie Games, I think that product is a very, very enjoyable one. Which, as you mentioned with Call of Cthulhu, there's a collector's edition coming out soon for Call of Cthulhu, which I'm going to pick up. It looked really, really sweet. So, thank you very much for the question. Very good question. Any more questions at all about building fun characters or running a game or favorite RPG moments or anything like that? Any at all? So, I guess I can keep going on while we're waiting for more questions. Feel free, like any questions at all. More than happy to field any of them. When I was talking about the other world a minute ago, I was talking about like talking about the familiar and how to contrast it with the difference. For example, like with the giant mushrooms, or with you can also take elements that you have in our world and either blow them up or shrink them down. So, for example, like in Alice in Wonderland, there's a giant caterpillar. Oh, here we go. So BGX Mage asks, what has been your favorite character you've come across, whether it be a player or an NPC? So I try not to pick favorites because I try to love all of the characters that come and play in my campaign, so that way I don't show any kind of favoritism or anything, or try and cut that player too much slack or anything like that. Every mother has a favorite child. You're right. But like any parent, I'm naturally going to have those characters that stick out. So you can't really see him super well, but he's right there. Right there is a little Randy Macho Man Savage Funko Pop that I received because there was a player who played as Randy Macho Monk Savage, which is definitely a very entertaining character. That was definitely a favorite because one day that particular player came in dressed as Randy Macho Man Savage and role played, and it was fantastic. That is definitely a favorite. NPCs. Most recently in Descent into Avernus, I got to roleplay as an otter. That was fun. A wizard had turned himself into an anthropomorphic otter. That was a very fun NPC. I also really like. There's a couple of characters that I've played in that, and one of them was Lilith, who was an elven princess, who was very, very entitled and had to grow a lot because she was stranded in the Underdark and hated every minute of it. And the players began, first started hating her and eventually grew to tolerate her. I also played in a game of Fiasco. There was a player who played as a person who had a fantastic kind of Minnesotan accent that sounded like they were off the set of Fargo. So those are fun characters too. There's just so many, across time, favorites that have come up, that we've come across. So those are kind of a long-winded one, but there's some of my answers for that. There are definitely lots of characters that stand out. There's a question for you, or there's an answer for you. So. Any more questions? Any at all? Softballs, hardballs, anything? Any questions about prep or anything like that? How would you handle it if you were describing a world and accidentally hit upon something that made a person very uncomfortable? For example, you described a giant spider and the player is arachnophobe. I'm actually going to answer this question in a couple of different ways. The first is that hopefully you're able to cover a lot of that information in session 0. I always recommend asking your players what any of their trigger warnings or any of the content that they're not interested in seeing. Some people can't do bugs. Some people can't do dogs. So on and so forth. Like that you have to, as a game master, have those conversations ahead of time, and let them know, like ask them what things are going to make them uncomfortable, and it should be one-on-one, or you can add. There are some resources out there for consent in gaming. That one's from Monty Cook Games. I've used that before. It's a very good resource just for kind of gauging that, and I think that you, as a game master, should fill one out, just so you know where you stand. And then also have your players fill them out, because they will actually be surprised. Because I've had a lot of clients and a lot of friends say, "Yeah, I don't have anything," and it's not a problem until it is. But I always recommend putting safety tools in place before, because you may never need them for a game, but you won't know that you need them until you do. So make sure that you cover things in session 0. Also, make sure that, if something comes up mid-game, you should have a safety tool in place. If you're playing in person, you can use an X card, which is you just have a card that has an X on it in the middle of the table, and the player can just tap it and say, and basically that is a nonverbal cue that whatever is happening right now is making them uncomfortable and we need to move on. If you need clarification, you can say, let's talk about this elsewhere. And obviously, depending upon it, if they feel comfortable discussing it with you, but I wouldn't push the issue when it comes to that. So if I was describing something and the person was an arachnophobe, I would either try to move on, probably pause, take a break, clarify with the player what it was that was making them uncomfortable, and go on from there. If I needed to change it to some other kind of thing, change the monster, it would really depend on that. So if they were an arachnophobe, I would probably try to change the content and move it on, or try and speed through it, or say, all right, after you dealt with the spider, these things happened, and kind of move the story along, so that way we're not getting hung up on that. Another thing for session 0 is, if there's content that is essential to the story, and I caution every game master when it comes to this, because if you're dealing with sensitive content, if it is essential to the story, it needs to be clearly conveyed to the players that there is going to be sensitive content in it. For example, there is a little bit, like in Hell, there are going to be a lot of content warnings, because there are violence, torture, so on and so forth, that are just going to be part of the game. But that needs to be clearly mapped out ahead of time, so that the players know what to expect, so that they're not caught unawares without their consent. And then have the safety tool in place, because you do not know that you need a safety tool until you need one. So having those in place is very, very, very important. So hope that answered your question well. So as someone who is also an arachnophobe, not a fan of spiders, if someone slaps a giant spider on the table, I might just be like, oh, okay, all right, that's something you're going to have to deal with. So cool. Any other questions at all? When building a character to play, are you more of a top-down builder or a bottom-up builder? Top-down, meaning that you develop your backstory and characteristic that lead to the race class abilities, or do you do it the other way around? It depends. I've done it both ways. So I would say that I'm I'm going to get judged here. I'm a bit of a munchkin. I like to make powerful characters that are optimized. Like, I tend to not waste a single skill point. I tend to not waste a single feat. Every level of the character tends to be, and that's just the way that I build. I just am an optimizer. But the character is, but I'm never going to. I'm always going to make sure that I make a character that is interesting and is fully fleshed out, so that the choices that I make always make sense. So I will tend to like build a character kind of concept, and then try to make sure that and I will try to work in the decisions, the skills, and the things that I have made into it. Or build the character backstory around the character concept that I have created. To make sure that like I try to account for every single decision that I've made when I'm building the character. But there are some times when a character just pops into my head, and I'm just like, ooh, I'm gonna make this character, and then I'm just gonna try and fit the character build, the class, and all of the abilities around it. That's how I build characters. So, like I said, I'm a bit of an optimizer when it comes to that. It's just very hard for me to not make hard for me to not make use of every skill point, and to make use. But I do specialize. Like, I'm not going to be like, I am the character that does everything. I'm just going to be the character. Like, I'm going to choose my niche, and I'm going to stick to that niche. I usually, when it comes to 5th edition, I like to play spellcasters, because I think that affords you a lot of options in combat. And just also in role-playing, too. Friends is a very interesting spell, in that it is always interesting. That you usually have it starts off with you have a minute to make someone your friend, and then after that they are aware you cast the spell, and they are no longer your friend, and are going to actively try to stop whatever it is that you're doing, or make your life difficult. So, but anyways, that's my answer for that one. Any other questions? All right. So when we were talking a minute ago, I'm just jumping back to my topic that I had just kind of written down while everyone's kind of thinking about questions and whatnot. We were talking about like different giant mushrooms and maybe giant caterpillars or things, using the familiar to describe the world that is the fantastic location. I also would encourage you as game masters, when you're doing that, to include food, because if they're going to be eating, they're going to have to eat something, and even if they're in an other location, an other world location, they're going to have to eat something different. So, for example, maybe there are, in Descent into Avernus, there are, spoiler alerts for Descent into Avernus, spoiler alerts, there are like fiendish chickens that they can find and eat. In Barovia, there's different things that they can eat. But there's a lot of like this idea of like the other world, and there are a lot of campaigns in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition especially, that focuses on creating an otherness, a different world that the players can transport to. So, for example, Rise of Tiamat is all kind of self-contained in the Sword Coast, but Out of the Abyss is definitely an other world. You go to a different place, and obviously it's the Underdark and an underground location. Very very alien world. There, the only thing that you can see is by the light of bioluminescent mushrooms. But also, Barovia is another world. Wild Beyond the Witchlight, which is a new campaign that's coming up, is definitely another world. Descent into Avernus, and to a lesser extent, Rime of the Frost Maiden. For those who are not from kind of those extreme climates, which I would argue is most people, that is definitely an other world, because it is very, very different. But yeah. I know. So another new question. I know you do a lot of prep as a GM, but is there anything a player can do to prep, specifically a first-time player? Absolutely. These are the pieces that I would do. One, before you start playing with your game master, try to meet with them. Try to meet with your game master to plan out kind of your character's backstory, how they fit into the party, how they fit into the campaign. And also, it's a really good place for you to meet with your game master and express your goals. Like, you can tell them, like, my character starts off as this kind of person, but I really want, this scene, or that I really want to have this goal for my character. My goal for my character is for them to become a hero to the people, or I want them to become, I want them to start off as very selfish, like I did with my one character, Lilith, but I want them to eventually grow and realize that there's more to life than just ruling over people. There's more, they have that kind of those character moments and those character growths. It's also a great time for you to also talk about what I was mentioning previously, which is to talk about any content warnings that you don't want to see or things that make you uncomfortable. Those are a great thing. Being honest and open with your game master about those things, about any kind of trauma that you don't have to go into detail. You can just say, this is content that makes me uncomfortable. Harm of innocence and torture are two of mine those are contents that are just no-goes for me. And then also, like, harming, like, animals, that's another thing for me that I'm not interested in as a player at all. So have those kind of things. Make sure that you have your characters complete, that you have all your skill points assigned, that you have all of your equipment finished, that you have your character is complete, and you've sent it off to the game master to look over, and make sure that you know what your spells are, and that you know how they work, and you know that if there are any other abilities, and you've researched and you understand how they work and all of that. Just basically make sure that you understand how your character plays, so that way you're not sitting fumbling through books or trying to Google things or figure this out and the other. That can really eat up a lot of time of having to figure out how everything works at the table is definitely something that I would do. Make sure you understand the rules of combat. That's a big one, especially for Dungeons and Dragons. Understand how combat works. Understand the basic rules of the game, so that way you don't have to know everything, but it definitely helps out if you are able to have a good baseline for your game master to, and you can also help other newer players too. If you're able to kind of be seen as this font of knowledge, and kind of be like a game master assistant, that's very helpful. But obviously, like, that's going above and beyond if you're just an expert. I mean, then, to be quite honest, it's how I learned a lot of the intricacies of Dungeons and Dragons is from some of my other players who were very, very well versed in the rules. Was when we would have corner cases come up, they would say, "That's actually not how that works," and I'm like, "Oh, cool! I didn't know that." Because when 5th edition came out and we started playing, the rules were so new to everyone. Everyone had these kind of preconceived notions of how Dungeons and Dragons worked from previous editions, and they did take a lot from previous editions, but we're all kind of learning the system at the same time. So I hope that answers your question. So, like I said, anyone, feel free. It doesn't have to be one after the other. I'll answer all of the questions in order. Just feel free to hit me with any questions at all about role-playing, about experiences, world building, anything. All right. So, talking about more, I'm just going to bounce back as we're waiting for more questions to the other world, which is kind of funny and ironic. So, with the other world, one of the things you can do in order to help it feel fantastic and create fantastic fauna is to combine different things. So, for example, I mentioned before making a giant caterpillar. But maybe it has, like the tusks of an elephant or a trunk or something like that. Adding something that normally doesn't have, like, for example, like have a cat with bug eyes, or, a big one is how far removed from human it is. If it has a chitinous shell, or tentacles or tendrils or things like that. Like that will definitely feel very alien and very different for a player. Trying to remove them from, you take these elements that they're familiar with, that they've seen like on our world, but put them with other things that they've seen on our world, makes them feel very, very alien and very different, and can help create and kind of drive home that this is a new place, that this is very different from the Earth that they have lived in and they have experienced as well. It may be just small things to help it feel different. Maybe the mountains float, like on Zendikar, which is a magic world, or Pandora, for those who are Avatar, not Avatar, The Last Airbender, but Avatar fans from James Cameron. Like those things can really go a long way, and you can be as inventive as you want. Maybe the rivers flow uphill. That's just a small thing. Maybe there are rivers of slime or what have you, or maybe there are bioluminescent things that live in the river and make it glow, or so maybe there's a mercury river that it flows down and makes it feel very, very different and alien. Maybe the people have strange customs. Maybe they have a strange cadence in which they speak, so that way to kind of make the players understand and feel that they are in a new place. Barovia, for example, maybe they have a different accent or different customs, or even very, very different cultural differences. And obviously, like anytime that we as game masters are doing accents, or we're trying to make a place feel different, try to always be respectful of any kind of cultures if you're trying to emulate them. Always approach those with respect, and there's a fine line between emulating and caricature and disrespect. So be very careful when it comes to that. And if a player tells you, hey, that's not cool, or something like that, listen and try to make corrections. Let's see here. Also, maps. Maps are really cool. Being able to have a custom made or one that you make yourself using any kind of thing to kind of using those exotic flora and fauna, and maybe a lava map if you're running Descent into Avernus, or a mist-filled map if you're running something from Barovia. I had a game master who is a friend of mine. When they were running Curse of Strahd in their first encounters, they actually brought like a map and some wolf miniatures, and they brought dry ice, and they put it in water so that the dry ice kind of like flowed over and created the fog of the mists of Barovia over the map as the players were playing, and brought some music. It was very, very cool. And definitely those kinds of things, especially if you're playing in person, just add a whole nother level of immersion and depth to your game. And some of those things, like the dry ice, and the music, very cheap, and it's very easy to bring those things into your game, and can help take your game to the next level, along with the descriptions and so on and so forth. And you don't always have to use miniatures. A lot of people just use, theater of the mind to do that. Another thing, as I mentioned before, with food, you can incorporate food into your game, into your campaign. And you can also, if you're playing in person, having a themed in the Hess household, we love a good theme, and so we will incorporate food and drink also into some of the events that we do. So that is something that you can do if you're going to be doing a Night of Dungeons and Dragons, and you're going to be in Barovia or various places, or if there's a festival or something, maybe you can do like festival food or so on and so forth for the evening. So definitely look for different ways to incorporate those into your game. So, any more questions? Any at all? Talked about quite a few things here. Do you have any resources for recommendations on becoming a better game master? I absolutely do. So one, you can read our blog at openheartgames.com, which is the Heart Monitor is the name of our blog. That is one resource. There are a couple of game masters that I really like. I really like Matt Colville. He is a very good storyteller, and is a really, really prolific game master. He has a lot of opinions on a lot of things. Many of them I agree with. Some of them I don't. But, I mean, that's going to be just about any game master. Another one I'm going to recommend is Sly Flourish. Sly Flourish is really, really good, especially at teaching you how to prep. He is the author of The Lazy Dungeon Master, and that is a really, really good resource, I feel, for game masters, especially for 5th edition. Like, the way he teaches you how to prep and whatnot is really, really good. Basically, there are just 8 steps that you walk through, and it helps you kind of prepare for everything that's going on in your session. And you just kind of think about, it's kind of some cues of just like, all right, I need to think about my players. I need to think about some secrets. I need to think about, the monsters that are going on, and so on and so forth. So those are 2 that I really, really recommend. I also recommend, I am a member of several GM Facebook groups, and I look at those regularly to see what kind of discussions and things, and see what other GMs are trying out, or some of the problems that they're facing. There are a lot of really, really good resources on social media platforms, Reddit, and so on and so forth. Like, those are really, really helpful to be able to get new outlooks for how other game masters are doing things, because that's how I've learned, is by asking other GMs, hey, how's this working? Does this work for you? So on and so forth. And then asking my players, like, for constant feedback. I always recommend at the end of every session, and not as a fishing for compliment, ask, hey, what did you think of the session? Please tell me something you liked, and tell me something you didn't like. And then when your player, and take that feedback into account. If a player ever comes to you and says, hey, I need to talk to you because there's something about your game that I didn't like, don't try to defend, just listen to the feedback, because some of it may be good, some of it may be bad, it may be something that's outside of your control, but always try to listen and make the improvements as you can. Just take that feedback into account when and it will help you be a better game master. Always be open to feedback and to changing. Sometimes the initial thing is ouch, because it can definitely hurt our pride, but eventually you'll be able to take that and be able to grow as a storyteller and as a game master. So I know that definitely there have been times where people have been like, yeah, I didn't like this thing. This wasn't really helpful. This wasn't really enjoyable. I definitely have received, and it's been able to, improve. Like, I've been able to move combat along and be much more descriptive in combat, to be able to move things and to gain that confidence as a game master. So those are big things. So Matt Colville, Sly Flourish, Facebook groups, and then also ask your players, the people who are playing with you, and talk to other game masters. I have some friends who we talk every once in a while about our campaigns, and what's going on in them, and those are really, really helpful. So those are my recommendations for resources for sure, including also our blog. Shameless plug. All right, looks like we have about 20 minutes left. What other questions do we have? Any at all? Taking all questions. Also, while I'm thinking about it and other people are thinking about what questions they want to ask, I will say that one of the things I find very useful is DM's Guild. There's a lot of game masters that have written complete guides and whatnot on how to run different modules and whatnot. Observations that you may make yourself, you may not make yourself, suggestions and whatnot. And you don't have to run your game based on how the module tells you, if you're running modules, based on how the module tells you to run it. And you don't have to run your game based on what these other people are saying of it. You can probably find, something down the middle of how what fits your style of running a game. How do you how you want to run that particular game? Do you want to add some more combats in there? Do you want to make it more challenging? Do you want to add more puzzles and so on and so forth? You mentioned dry ice in the Strahd game. What other things have you seen other GMs do that you thought were really cool? Oh, more things. Cool. All right. So I'll answer the first question, which is about Strahd, and then I'll get to the second question. Okay. So mentioned the dry ice and Strahd. What other cool things have I seen? I have seen someone bring in like a full 3D built like castle for something that they were running. Those are always really cool. Whenever someone brings in a diorama or like a Dwarven Forge thing, which you can look up Dwarven Forge, those are awesome and really expensive. Those are always really, really cool and add a dynamic to that. However, it's very expensive and very time-consuming to create that. And once you've used it, you can't use it for that group again. If you're running for multiple groups, so for example, if you're running Curse of Strahd and you did those kinds of things, like that would definitely be something that you would be able to, you'd not be able to use again unless you're using it again for multiple places. I have seen, I actually have a scenario where I used this thing. Oh, and I love this miniature, one of my favorite miniatures, where I just basically had the players running from it through a forest, and then I would just move the dragon closer to them and closer to them and closer to them, and I didn't have them fight it because it's an Elder Red Dragon and they would die, and they were like level 7. But it's like being able to use those kinds of things is really cool. A lot of the thing. I had a player who actually created his own candles and wrote an entire adventure about these like magical candles. And then wrapped them up like it was and had like behind it you could like it was a prop for Call of Cthulhu that you could like peel, and then like behind it was a bunch of like Cthulhu looking script and stuff like that. And then also he brought like a ceremonial dagger that he had constructed. Like there was a lot of really cool things like that. Call of Cthulhu tends to have a lot of really, if you are playing in person, there's a potential for you to have a lot of really really cool like in place or in person like props for the things for the players to play with. Those are some big things. I've also seen players use like coins, like actually hand the players coins, so they have to actually hand the coins back when they're doing things like that. So those are some cool things that I've seen, especially like in person. I've also I've seen game masters have like bring in like guests, like if they're having like multiple NPCs talk and have the players play as those NPCs. Those are also really cool. So next question is, the Open Heart Games events that I saw are published scenarios. Are you planning on running adventures that I have written? If so, yes. The answer is in the distant future, yes. One of the big constraints that I always find is time. I want to be able to run stuff that we've written, but taking the time to create consistently and do that takes a lot of time, other than and planning and whatnot, and being able to run those scenarios. I want to be able to play test any of the content that we're going to be generating to make sure that it's balanced and to make sure that the players are having a good time. And the playtesting time also takes additional time to do. So the answer is eventually, but not right now. I really, really enjoy a lot of but I will say that like I like to be able to have a module that has kind of a pre-published thing and be able to put my own twists and turns on it and to be able to play those different things. There's kind of I think there's a different, and some people are really good GMs as like writers, and some people are really good GMs as directors. And I think also there are people who are really good writer-directors who can do both. I really love doing a lot of homebrew stuff, but the big thing is, of course, just the time. Managing all of this and doing our playtesting stream that we do here on Twitch, and then also running let's see, right now I'm running 3 campaigns total. I'm running the one for our stream. I'm running the 2 that we do for our clients, and then we're looking to add a 3rd. I want to be able to do it, but time. I eventually do want to put out content for people to be able to run on their own. That, of course, like I said, I want to be able to play test it. So the answer is yes, but eventually. So looks like we have about 13 minutes left. Do we have any more questions at all? Like, definitely want to be able to answer all the questions that were asked. Any questions? Any questions about the marathon or anything like that? Or any upcoming events? Anything at all? I will also say here we go. Any thoughts on the marathon itself, things you change, etc.? So there are a couple of things that I would change. I definitely, one of it is I want to get the picture the resolution to be a little bit more clear. But that was just, I'm still learning how to use Twitch and streaming in OBS, and still trying to kind of perfect my craft when it comes to that. So I'm still very, very new to streaming and still trying to learn how to do all of that. So I think one of the big things is I would try and change it so that the picture is a little bit clearer and it doesn't cut out the black, which I'm going to be trying to experiment on this week. Because that's what it was trying to do. So some of the images are not as clear. I want to try and do a little bit more of a green screen kind of thing to try and crisp that up a little bit. I wish that I was able to pull players aside and be able to talk to them without the rest of the party hearing, but I don't know if there's a good way to do that. Another suggestion that we had was to kind of like cover the players' icons with their actual, like in the Discord you can kind of see right here. You can kind of see that this is our Discord stream. You can see my name up here, and then you can see like I would have other players kind of listed down there. But if we want to put their actual character icons over that, so you can easily tell who they are. Another thing we really want to do is we really want to experiment with using the D&D Beyond overlay for Twitch, so that way everyone can easily see everyone's character sheets and so on and so forth. So those are some of the big things that I want to change. That's one of the cool things about doing a stream like this and doing more and more of this is we keep getting better each and every time that we try something new. Favorite moment from the marathon. For those who have not seen the marathon, I will put that up on YouTube very soon. There was a fantastic moment where the players decided to open up the door. One of the players had a wonderful that clip is actually, I believe it's on our Facebook page, which you can watch. And that particular player was very surprised at all of the giants that were inside. I did not realize that player had not seen the interior of that room, which is just full. I think there are like 15 or 20 giants in there, which is a lot. And he was like, "Oh man," oh cool. So that was a great moment. The players then took one of the players' companions, which was a snake nicknamed Danger Noodle, threw it into the room, and then polymorphed it into a T-Rex, of course making it Noodlesaurus Rex, which, hilarity and insanity ensued, and the players were able to then kill the evil hill giant tyrants and save the day. That was probably definitely my favorite moment from that. That and one of our players was playing as the Muffin Man and decided that he was going to walk into a kitchen full of orc servants and whatnot and kind of Chef Gordon Ramsay them. and and while he was directing them and just very, very charismatically ordering them about, the rest of the players, deftly snuck by, so that way there was nothing there. So, or the kitchen staff was unawares. So those were some fantastic moments. So, any other questions at all? We got about 8 minutes left. Any questions? Anything at all? You've been using Roll20, right? Have you experimented with any other VTTs? That is correct. Currently, we are on Roll20, and we are using Discord as our voice over IP for a variety of reasons, sound clarity, so on and so forth. Other virtual tabletops, I have heard that eventually D&D Beyond is going to be getting a virtual tabletop. I am very interested to see what happens with that, and I've been kind of watching that one with bated breath. I have played but not run on not Foundry. The other one. Let's see if I can find it real quick. I downloaded it. I thought I downloaded it. It looks like I didn't download it. That's fine. I can't remember the name of the other one. The other main one might be Foundry. I've looked into Owlbear Rodeo. That one looks really, really cool, although it does no math for you, and it's just, here's my character, here's this character, and so on. It's very, very, very simple, and that one's really cool. I like how like I said, I like Roll20. I like how it works. I like how the dynamic lighting looks and works in Roll20. I've also looked at I can't remember the name of the other one. Now I'm gonna have to look real quick. Fantasy Grounds. That was the one. Fantasy Grounds was one of them. And the other one that I saw that looked really, really cool is Tailspire, but it requires every person who is playing to buy a copy of the game in order to play it. Fantasy Grounds, just the person who runs has to have a pro account, and then everyone else can download the free client and use it. But I've definitely played Fantasy Grounds, and the two feel similar. But I think I really like the dynamic lighting and how it works in Roll20. And I like how it integrates very well with D&D Beyond. But I'm anxiously awaiting how how that comes about. So, or like with D&D Beyond. So hope that answers your question. And it looks like someone posted the Facebook link. What are you looking forward to most as we wrap up the year and head into 2022? I'm looking forward to a couple of things. The first thing I'm looking forward to is I'm hoping that we're able to to break $2,000 when it comes to our donations for Extra Life. That is goal number one. Is I want to break $2,000 for our Extra Life donation. Number two is I'm hoping to continue. I'm hoping to continue to grow as a game master, as a streamer, and also as gain more proficiency with Roll20 and also D&D Beyond. I'm looking forward to. I think the as some of my friends say, the Panini. Has affected how Wizards views online table TTR VTTs, virtual tabletops, and I look forward to them continuing to make their modules more friendly for streaming, and also to make them more friendly for online play. Because there are definitely some things that I think that when they were doing the initial Dungeons and Dragons, some of those modules like are designed to have to be everyone sitting around a table. But I think that Wizards of the Coast has definitely taken notice of the current situation and is making changes to that. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing more content. I'm very, very much looking forward to Wild Beyond the Witchlight. All the content that I've seen come out for that, like people talking about interviews and so on and so forth, is very, very interesting. And I look forward to that campaign. One of the things I heard recently is that it is entirely possible for that campaign, and like I said, I've only seen one article about it, it is entirely possible in that campaign for it to be done entirely pacifistically, so no combat, but it would be very, very hard to do so. So I'm intrigued by the possibility of it focusing on the other two aspects of role playing, of RPGs, which is of course role playing and exploration. So that I think that's going to be very cool. I'm looking forward to more modules that they're going to be putting out, and of course more source books, fizz bands, and so on and so forth. The future of tabletop RPGs and whatnot. I'm also very much looking forward to the Avatar game, and I want to be able to run that when it comes out. And I hope we get more stuff from more Star Wars content from it's not Atomic Mass, Edge Studios for the Star Wars RPG. So those are the things that I'm definitely looking forward to. Any last minute questions? Any at all? I'll take one more question. Anything at all. Anything appropriate at all, of course. Who's going to get the last question? Or was it BGX Mage? All right, cool. Looks like that's going to be it for today. So, if anyone wants to join us tonight, for Descent into Avernus, wants to join that campaign. It's a very interesting part of the campaign. The players have just made it to Avernus, so they're in the first layer of hell, trying their best to survive and to save everyone that they can. We're looking for 2 more players for that. If you're interested, you can sign up on our website, openheartgames.com. Also, we will be having One Shot Wednesdays on September 29th. That's going to be at 7 o'clock. And November 6th, Extra Life Game Day will be back doing another marathon, raising more money for Extra Life, benefiting Carillion Children's. And we are very, very excited to do that. So, thank you all so much for joining me today for our Game Master AMA. And take care, and we'll see you later. Take heart.